Hello everyone, and welcome to another animated look back. Why is Claymation the scariest type of animation out there? I mean, really, I don't know what it is, but there's always something about Claymation films that always tends to go towards the more creepy and supernatural elements. With a few exceptions like Aardman Studios and what they do with Wallace and Gromit, Claymation is usually the more creepy and dark type of animation that you see in films these days. And today on Animated Look Back, we're reviewing a type of animated film I haven't looked at yet, and a type of animated film you don't really see very often. The animated family horror movie. Just saying that out loud sounds really weird. But that's very fitting because this is a wondrously weird movie. The story of Coraline follows a young girl by the name of Coraline. Her family moves into this place in the country called the Pink Palace, and her parents are really busy with the move and trying to work at home writing this book, and they don't have a whole lot of time for Coraline. She finds this little door that seems to be bricked up, but then at night she opens it and she finds it has a mysterious passageway. And as she goes in, she finds her other mother, who looks exactly like her regular mother. The only thing different is she has buttons for eyes. At first, Coraline thinks this is the perfect world. I mean, everything is so fantastic, their garden looks beautiful, her crazy neighbors now have amazing skills and talents that they use to entertain her. The whole world seems to revolve around her, but the most important thing is her parents have time for her. But as the film goes on, Coraline thinks there might be something more coming on behind that little door. Now, while I say Coraline is a horror movie, I don't mean it's like an extreme horror movie. I mean, the other mother doesn't come after Coraline with a chainsaw or anything. Well, that would be terrifying. But the film definitely has a scary atmosphere, and that's what it's going for. I mean, I think it sets the tone perfectly with the opening score. The beginning of the movie starts out, as we find out later, of the making of the Coraline doll. And I love how it plays it, because the music plays where we don't really know if this is creepy or whimsical. It kind of comes across as half whimsical and half unnerving. Maybe a better way to say it is kind of like creepy music trying to pretend to be whimsical. And I think that really perfectly sets the tone for the film right there. This movie was directed by Henry Selick, the director of The Nightmare Before Christmas, and it was also based on the book written by Neil Gaiman, who, well, if you don't know who that is, then read a book, or a comic book, either way. But if you have seen or read any of the previous works by these men, you can see that their fingerprints were all over this, especially with the style of animation and the way the story is told in the way that it feels very much like a Neil Gaiman story. Apparently Neil Gaiman was just finishing his copy of the book and was just finishing it and then talked to Henry Selick and said, hey, you know what, I think this might make a good film. And he read it and, agreed, and then this movie happened. However, one thing you have to remember is that Coraline was kind of a risk. I mean, there wasn't a lot of scary kids movies coming out around this time. I mean, the only one that I can remember was 9. Sorry. I fall asleep every time I think about that movie. But there wasn't a lot of animated movies coming out around this time that were a more scary movie directed for a younger audience. So is this movie remembered because it's a trendsetter or because it's really that good? Well, let's take a look. This time, let's talk about the animation first. I actually really like how creative it is. And, Claymation is such a unique art because it takes so much work. Every little movement, every little detail takes so much work, and you gotta really appreciate it when it's this good. Actually, at first, when I was writing my notes for my review of this film, I was actually going to say, hey, the backgrounds look a little bare. There's barely anything in them. You could have added some more stuff in there. And then I realized that was just to add contrast and comparison when Coraline goes into the other world. Because in the other world, there's so much wondrous things to look at, both when it is a magical world filled with wonder and when it turns into a dark place trying to kill her. Both ways is so filled to the brim with creativity. But in the real world, it's pretty downplayed and dull. And looking at it now, I say, no, that's on purpose. That's there so you can contrast the two worlds and see the big difference. The only thing that I can say about the animation that I kind of felt a little bad about was, I think the lip sync in the beginning, not throughout the whole film, but in the beginning, I felt that the lip syncing with the characters was a little off. Just a little.
Oh, I'm not supposed to talk about it. I'm Wybie. Wybie Lovat.
Wybie?
Short for Wyborn. Not my idea, of course. What'd you get saddled with?
I wasn't saddled with anything. It's Coraline.
Caroline what?
Coraline. Coraline Jones.
It's not real scientific, but...
I don't know if they corrected this and they did it better later on, or maybe if I just got used to it so it didn't really bother me. Either way, I noticed a little bit in the beginning, there's something a little off about it that didn't fully work, and then either I got used to it or it got better later in the film. Either way, I thought I'd point that out because really that's the only thing I can really say about the animation that's a negative, and that's a nitpick. Everything else is great. I mean, the character designs are just so good. I mean, from Coraline to Wybie to her parents to the ever-changing other mother, which goes from a sweet, wholesome woman with buttons in her eyes to over as she slowly changes into more and more of a monster as the film goes on, and I really like that. The side characters, though, are not just drawn well, they're pretty interesting, too. I like how they're all just a little crazy, a little off-kilter, you know? There's something not really right with every one of them. I mean, in the real world of Coraline, we got these two older ladies. Now, they're old performers, and they're a little crazy, you know? They have so many dogs, and they keep all of them, even when they die, they stuff them and put them on their wall. They have decades-old candy, and so they're a little off, a little, you know, a little crazy. But in the dream world, oh my gosh, my eyes! How on earth did I get by censorship? What? Oh my gosh! This is a movie you can show to your kids, right? Man, that makes me want to jump out of my skin! One moment.
Hello, you've reached reality. How may I direct your call?
Yeah, I'd like to come back now.
Now, sir, are you sure about this? I must remind you, Donald Trump is still running for president.
That's a fair enough point. Okay, I'll stay a little longer.
Have a good day, sir.
Anyway, while the side characters are fun, I don't really find them funny, really. I mean, there's a couple of humorous moments, but nothing really laugh out loud. But even though I don't find them particularly hilarious, I do find them pretty enjoyable, and they're likable characters. Like, take Wybie, the awkward kid, he's lived with his grandmother, probably doesn't have that many friends. You know, he's a little bit awkward when it comes to social interactions. He's always looking at the ground and fumbling with his hands. That's a good character. He's fun. You know, I always thought that Coraline was, like, unnecessarily cruel to Wybie. I mean, she kept on, you know, saying, like, why were you born? Because his name's actually Wyborn. And it's just like, jeez, that's mean. But looking about it now, she does have moments where she goes from, you know, being annoyed with him to she does, you know, chuckle, have some fun. And I think that's how some kids are, you know. They can go from being super mean to super nice in a second, and they don't even realize it. But I think that's kind of the thing with these characters, is all of them have a little point where they can be a little mean. I mean, the mother, I kind of think, is a little bit too mean in the beginning, you know. She's, like, really annoyed with Coraline, and she's not asking too much of a thing, and she's like, ugh, Coraline, come on! But in the end, I think we all know our mothers, and we all know there's a day where they just don't want to deal with us kids. Oh, they're just fine. But, you know, we all have bad days, and I think that this movie shows that they caught the mother on a bad day. Because throughout the film, she's not as testy as she is in that, but, you know, sometimes that's just the way it goes. I mean, the parent characters themselves are pretty plain when it comes to parent characters. There's nothing too out there with him. It's actually kind of amusing when you have the other world of the parents. They're actually the more interesting characters. I find that interesting. But then there is the cat who follows Wybie around and who knows about the other world and who, while he's in the other world, can talk to Coraline. With the voice of Keith David.
You must be the other cat.
No, I'm not the other anything. I'm me.
I can see you don't have button eyes, but if you're the same cat, how can you talk?
I just can.
Cats don't talk at home.
No?
Nope.
Well, you're clearly the expert on these things. After all, I'm just a big fat wuss-puss.
It's actually kind of weird, you know. It's like I keep on expecting him to call me Shepherd and to tell me to go save the galaxy from the Reapers. The cat is interesting because it almost seems like he isn't really a friend and he isn't really a foe, you know? He is there to help, but he's not really going out of his way to the point where he puts himself in danger. He'll warn Coraline and say, hey, this is going to happen and stuff, but when he's put in danger because of Coraline, he is not happy about it. I mean, he only really helps Coraline besides talking to her once, and the rest of the time he's just, you know, being the voice of reason and saying, hey, just don't be so trusting. It is a little weird that such a deep voice comes out of this little cat. It wasn't necessarily the first voice I was thinking of when I saw it, but it works, and he still does a pretty good job. The other mother is actually pretty interesting as well, because she starts out like super sweet and all so loving and everything, but as the film goes on, you start to see that there's more and more to this character, and you sense more and more that she is definitely going to be doing some bad things. Her motivation as a villain is actually pretty interesting because she craves love. Now, obviously, these children that she's, luring over to the other world, she doesn't actually love them, otherwise she wouldn't take their eyes and their souls. But, oh yeah, I didn't get to that. She's taken the souls of 3 different kids by putting buttons in their eyes. Are we sure this is a kid's movie? But it's really interesting for a villain's motivation is to want love. Now, obviously, from what we can see, she doesn't want it because, she feels lonely or anything. That's how she gets her powers, because every time when Coraline eventually goes over and gets the children's eyes, which is, that's weird, right? I mean, it's like going on, instead of an Easter egg hunt, you go for the eyeballs. Come on, kids, it's time to go on the eyeball hunt! But anyway, we can see that every time she takes one of the eyeballs, the world starts to freeze up and to fade away. So obviously she gets her powers from the souls of these children, and that's why she wants to take Coraline's soul and become more powerful. So she has an interesting motivation, she's creepy, she's menacing, diabolical, and is a really good villain for this film. I think this film's greatest asset is its handle of atmosphere. Because this film is dripping with great atmosphere. The way it shapes its world and characters is just about perfect, because we always know what's going on, we always know who's who, we always know where we are and what's going on. I mean, from the very beginning, the moment we see Coraline for the first time, we got an idea of what type of character she is. She seems to be a fun, energetic kid. That's 1. She's using her imagination to find water with the stick. That's 2. And that's also a superstitious thing to use that. So that's another thing to show that her mind is open to the weird world when it happens. She doesn't take any crap and can be very, very stubborn. But in the end, is still a kid and likes to do things that kids does and isn't above it all. And we can see this very clearly with the great facial expressions that they give with her, and the great way the animation is drawn. Not drawn, molded, I guess would be the right word. Because, she's always doing something like, whether she's, fidgeting when she's at the door, just waiting, or whether she's just standing there, she's scratching her poison oak, or there's the fact that, when her mother is asking her something, she gives her the puppy dog eyes, like every kid did. She is played by former child star Dakota Fanning, and I think she does really well in this. When I saw this for the first time, I didn't know it was Dakota Fanning, and I was actually surprised when I found out that it was her later. And I think this is one of her better performances, especially considering, in her early career, she was really typecasted in the Mara Wilson syndrome role, always having to be the cute, precious little child with the cute smile and the awws. To be totally honest, I think this is probably her best acting since Taken. So not that Taken, the other one. Does nobody remember that? It was a show produced by Steven Spielberg about aliens taking people from Earth into their spaceships. Dakota Fanning played a girl who was conceived on a spaceship because they took a guy and a girl and made them mate together, and then on the spaceship, and because of that she has telepathy powers. And so then the government wants her, and they come after her, and it's the aliens and blah blah blah. It was produced by Steven Spielberg. I mean, am I the only one that remembers that? Fine, whatever. Let's just get back on track. I like how the script also, along with the animation, gets her mannerisms down perfectly. I think the script did a good job with the very simple thing of her name. I mean, her name is Coraline, but everyone always calls her Caroline. Kids hate it when you get their names wrong. They hate it. I mean, seriously, look, Kenneth is not a hard name to pronounce or to say or to get confused, but let me just say, it really bugged me whenever anybody called me Kenny, or I have a brother named Chris, and Chris, even though Chris and Kenneth doesn't sound exactly alike, they both start with a K sound, and so everyone would always call me Chris, and that would drive me nuts, and nobody is allowed to call me Kenny either, because I hate that, except for my aunt, because she's been calling me Kenny since, I was a little kid, and, now I don't have the heart to tell her that I don't like being called Kenny. But for anyone else, if they call me Kenny, you're dead to me. Anyway, my point is, everyone in the real world besides her parents always gets her name wrong. And everyone in the dream world always says her name right. And I think that's just another little thing to show how this world is trying to, seduce Coraline by, just doing everything she wants, including always getting her name right. And I think that's just another little thing that I like. Little things like that make her a fully realized character that I quite enjoy. My only really complaint about Coraline is I think she accepts the other world a little too quickly. I mean, she goes through the passageway, comes out the other side, and then she sees the other mother and sees that she has buttons on her eyes, and she says, "You're not my mother," and she says, "No, I'm your other mother. Everyone has another mother." And then she goes, "Okay." That's pretty much it. I mean, I guess you could say that she thinks she's dreaming, but I really... Even though she says to her parents, "Oh, these are dreams," I really got the fact that she doesn't think they're dreams. She never says to anybody else that they're dreams. She always is saying, when she's in the other world, she doesn't say, "Wow, this is a weird dream" or anything. She always treats it like it's real. And I kind of think that's the way she views it. Like, she doesn't want to tell her parents that she thinks it's real because she knows they won't believe her. But she never says to the audience, to us, that, "Oh, wow, these are weird dreams." She's always telling that to her parents. And I think she kind of just accepts this other world a little bit too fast in my eyes. A little bit. Besides that, the only really complaint I have about this film is the ending is, I don't know, it's a little basic, I guess. It's like, she has to find the 3 eyes of the 3 children, and then find her parents. And so she has to go... find one eye, do something, then she's got it. And then she has to do that 2 more times. Honestly, it feels like a video game. Okay, Dad's coming at me with the Mantis tractor. What do I do? Okay, roll, go. Okay, I got the first eye. Okay. Achievement unlocked. Alright, let's see. 2 to go. Alright, stealth. Don't want to wake all the flying dog bats. That's really weird. Okay. Oh, okay, they attack me! What do I do? I know. I'll shine the light on the ceiling. And yes, now! Alright, now I just gotta fight the story of mice and men and then the big boss battle. Overall, I really enjoy Coraline. I wouldn't say it's a personal favorite of mine, but this is the type of film that's really going to speak to a specific group. And if you're part of that group, you will love this movie. But if you're not like me, you'll just really like it and really enjoy it and think it's a really fun film. So it has a great main character, amazing animation, fun side characters, a few laughs, even more scares, and is fun for the whole family as long as you don't have, like, little kids. I think the world of Coraline is fully realized, it fully grasps its potential, it fully shows us what can be done with claymation and how impressive and creepy at times it can be.
Black is traditional. But if you'd prefer pink, or vermilion, or chartreuse. Though you might make me jealous.
No way! You're not sewing buttons in my eyes!
Oh, but we need a yes if you want to stay here.
So sharp you won't feel a thing. Ow!
So in the end, I'm giving Coraline a 7.5 out of 10. It's a very good movie. I think if this was a type of genre that I enjoyed more, I might give it even a higher rating, because there's not really a lot wrong with this movie. I think the only thing that is kind of would be a little bit in the downgrade is the plot is pretty straightforward. You can kind of see where it's going to go by the end of it. But overall, it's still a fun movie, and I think it's good enough to earn a 7.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm LazyDude99, and be sure to join me on my next animated look back when I review Beauty and the Beast. Adios.
I'm Coraline Jones. I've got so much to tell you.
Here, thanks.
Do you want to pop a little gin in it, dear?
Of course.